And today it's still a little,
Just to let everybody
And
know.
recording, okay. Rodney Robinson, president.
board member.
Ellen Richardson, secretary.
Gloria Henry, site supervisor.
Dan Cooper, this work site team manager.
Amy Goldman, Jeffrey, Deputy Director, HCA.
Suzanne Savory, director, HCA.
Tracy Tree, board member.
Melissa Forsey, board member.
Josh Rich, board member.
And have more lead interpreter.
And on the Zoom call, we have, Joe, you want to start?
Joe McDaniel,
Casey Ewart,
Tom Smith, David Holden.
Okay. David's our treasurer.
Yes. Okay. thank you.
Morning.
If we could proceed with the secretary's report, Ellen.
I emailed out the meeting minutes from the annual meeting for everybody to review. There's really a lot to go over. Were there any questions or?
Is there any discussion? I would just like to say that I think you handled the note on our speaker very, very well. And I thank you. So who called the vote? All those in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Same. Motion carries. Thank you for the secretary report.
You're welcome.
David, have treasurer's report, please.
Good morning. I trust everyone got the report that Ellen distributed. And I'll just go through it briefly. It's the same format as you've seen the last few quarters now. Most of the activity was around the annual meeting, and you can see that reflected in the report. See our Delaware Community Foundation accounts, which are itemized there as well. So total assets are just a little over $99,000 in those three accounts. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions about David's report? Thank you very much. Let's move on to the membership report. Elizabeth, I want to thank you for writing that excellent in June.
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you. I helped you
Very
on,
good.
so. This membership report is as of September 5th, so that's last week. We have 61 signups for $6,325. I'll just skip to the bottom where you have the charts. You can kind of see a comparison of how we've done from 2018 forward. We have vested our total dues received over the last couple of years. Part of that is because we will raise our level support and add some higher levels, so people could live at a $500 level to do so. And we are just under our number from 2021, although Ellen did email me, I think this morning, to say that we.
Right.
So now we're at 62, so we can hold our number. Great. And then you can see the third page there is our average shift is the highest since 2018, again, partially attributed to that restructuring of our level. And then I added in a pie graph, I guess, showing the distribution of our members based on. No surprise that Delaware makes up the majority of our membership, with a couple of other states, coming in. I'd love to see more participation from Pennsylvania, particularly neighbors. we also have members from Florida, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, and Virginia. Great, so nice distribution. If we go back, any questions about that? That's kind of like history. Anyone have questions about those numbers or anything?
It looks like the average gift is going up every year.
Yeah, so the average gift has gone up. Again, we did that restructure, I believe, in 2021.
Okay.
So, you know, that means our lowest level is, I think our lowest level used to be $10 or $15, now our lowest level is 25. There are some outliers. If you go to the top table, on page 1, there are a few people that have given at what I'll call a miscellaneous level. It doesn't fit into any of those categories. We still do have some people giving in between or below or above. So I count them as miscellaneous, but they're still covered. So in my mind. Yeah, so our average gift has gone up, and I think a lot of that is that we have people who are $5 level. But the most popular level is the sponsor level, which is $100. That's where most of our members are in that level. Any questions on these numbers? Okay, so in the notes on page 1 under that table, it just kind of is like a look back on what we've done this year with our members and how we've kind of like interacted with them. The president's letter was sent in February and it contained the member brochure. The membership mailing was sent in July. It included the letter and donation envelope. And then later this year is, I kind of like to look at later this year and in 2023 to kind of get our plans back on. So later this year, I would like to send out the member survey. I recirculated that again for input. I think we can just maybe talk about that in a minute. The next thing is, I believe last year and the year before we did a holiday card, which I think was nice, but my recommendation is that we skip that card we have, we gather at the mansion, because we can send out a nice card for that to invite people to that. We can still do the holiday card, it's just something to consider an additional cost and postage. But, and then that's later this year. So I guess first, does anyone have any thoughts about the member survey? I was kind of thinking we could send it out around Thanksgiving. That would be typically a lot of nonprofits reach out to their members before Thanksgiving with in general, we're thankful for you and this season of thanks, kind of showing appreciation. So that seems like a natural time to me to send this out and saying, love your input and feedback on how we're doing and how we can improve.
The only concern I have is if we only send it through email, you know, we do have members that we don't have their email address or members that just don't use email.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what the exact number is, Ellen. Of the percentage of emails we have for our members and not everyone checks their email. You know, the survey is one in which it is easier to gather the information online. So hopefully everyone will fill it out online. So I think we can do it one of two ways. We can send an email and or we can do both. We can also send a postcard with a link. Now the link is one that they're gonna have to obviously type in and it'll be a little more work for them to find it that way. But we could do both approaches. And then if you send it by postcard, we could have a nice picture of the property or something on the cover, maybe a picture of John Dickinson on the front of it, postcard to the back, it just says we're sending out these office survey. Then I'm thinking about that.
I think it makes sense.
So one of the things that when a person signs up to be a member, do we ask the question, how would you like to be moved with email, address, whatever?
We ask for their email, we don't specifically ask for preference.
I think if you did that, then you would be able to sort, you know, this file over your email, or direct mailing or whatever the case may be. That may help a little bit in terms of communications.
I mean, with membership, our mailing list is under 200, so it's not too burdensome to do it, but I don't think it's a bad idea if we were dealing with, you know, 5 to 500,000, actually, we should definitely do that. We're really saving some money on postage. But we can look into doing that when we do our, once I think the next time we have to do that order.
What was the purpose of doing?
Just getting input on our members, how long we've been associated with the organization, what they feel that we can improve upon, how they like to be contacted, that is one of the questions. So, and, you know, when was the last time they visited and mentioned, would they come to social events in the future? It was just kind of a broad array of questions. And just to remind everyone, if somebody doesn't want to answer a question, you can skip forward. There are no requirements to answer questions like there are some surveys. I think it'll only take, you could probably fill it out in 5 minutes. You could probably take 20 minutes to give very thoughtful, detailed answers in some of the fields that are more of a paragraph.
So the idea is to get this out around Thanksgiving.
That's my proposal.
How long are you going to?
Yeah, so I think that we want to have feedback. Well, I think that we as a group, it will take us a while to come through and analyze results. So I think that regardless of when we receive it back, we need to allow it ourselves some time to like crunch the data to share among the board. So I think if we have it by the end of the year, I think that will give people enough time to remind people at the holiday party, if we have that, to fill out the survey, and we could possibly have more of those parts there, so something can take it with them.
I think we probably would want to put a link to the survey on our website
Sure.
as well.
Yep.
Did you get that, Tom?
Yeah.
Okay.
That they have a way to like kind of compile the data. So once it's out, we are really who wants to input. So I do think that we could have it in January to discuss with the time of the meeting. But I think it should be something that we will have to absorb for a little while and think about and reflect on. Because depending on the type of answers that we get, it could really make a shift and look at something with a new perspective.
Good.
So are we good with sending a postcard that I can sign? We'll send it out, email and postcard, and probably like the week before. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Right. So we'll talk about the holiday gathering, I guess, later, so we can get that. So my 2023 membership plan, that I would love to put on is, sort of the January, February, is the target time to send out president's letter. We've done this a few different ways over the last couple of years since I've been involved. But I think that should go out in January, February, and remember we're short and donation envelope. And then I'm proposing that next year I'll send thank you letters to members on receipt of their dues. I don't know what that looks like yet. It could just be a card with a thank you, or it could be a card with a thank you or something else. That we, you know, in the past, we use magnets and stuff like that. So I think we can discuss those details maybe in January. And then the plan I think would be then to send a follow-up member mailing for those who's not going to be by the summer. So after that, and so we'll have the letter in January, send thank yous, have an annual meeting where we'll talk about membership and importance, and follow up after the annual meeting with a letter just to those who haven't. That okay, everyone?
Who would send the thank you notes? Okay.
I'm gonna say monthly, it might not be monthly, but I'll try to make it monthly. It'll be hard to put a third report.
I think if you just created just a card,
Yeah,
that all you have to do is put the address and
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
mirror and receipt of your, but people might need it for tax purposes or.
So it's interesting with membership, the rules on membership and tax deductibility are different than a straight vacation. It depends on what benefits they receive from membership dues. I do not work for a dues-based organization, so it's harder for me in my background to understand what those rules are, but I can look into those rules a little more. But the tax deductibility, I'm sure since we don't really offer a ton of benefits that are not, the distinction really comes a lot of times if let's say somebody spends money on the holiday gathering mansion. We'll just say for argument's sake that the ticket is $50, even though it's supposed to not $50. But it's $50 to attend the holiday gathering. If we spend $40 on food per person, then the tax deductibility is only $10. So there is a threshold in which you don't have to provide that information to people, but there is another threshold where you do. So again, I don't really do membership. That's not my have expertise in that, but I can look it up, especially now that we're having levels that are so much higher than we used to be. I think when the levels were really low, we were probably not making any money on our members, just based upon, what we provided them, but at this point it might be, so I think that's what we have to do.
You mentioned magnets, you have a supply of magnets?
We don't have a lot left. I have some in my apartment, I have a bin in my apartment that are Dickinson stuff, but I don't think we have enough. So I think that that's something that we can discuss possibly in the January meeting as well. There's lots of things you can get for relatively inexpensive. There's a lot of like websites I use for my work. Tattoos, temporary tattoos are fun, not for our group. I think they're great. But yeah, they also have stickers and magnets, pins, you could get pins. Pins are actually quite popular with people now. Like, people put on your shirt. I want to let it say. So I think we can talk about that, but if anyone sees anything or gets any ideas, that's kind of something fun I think you guys can try out.
Okay.
Some people like patches, I'm a board member that get patches, my organization likes to sew them on things, so there's a lot of different ways we can take this, so everyone can throw in their creativity hats and help me out with that.
And bonuses, we all get to say the word chunks we go over.
Well, so there is flag. Yep, yeah, so, okay. I think the other thing that John and I were talking offline about was providing sort of thank yous to our higher level donors. And John, you wanna-
I suggested this is, we have a supply, it's certified, term, it's we.
Mary, you feel coldy yet?
It's a nice oval.
I think I'm muted. You feel coldy?
But I think, we have the only cost to us would be.
I will say, I do remember us having this discussion when we first talked about raising the cost of membership. And that was one of the suggestions that we made at the time.
The other thing we could do is we could just hand them out at the annual meeting and the holiday party.
Would we have that many?
To the people that are at their highest level, so we're going to send those and we can save some costs and mailing and, maybe we can put posters at the end of the year, whoever it is.
Anyone needs one now, I have a couple more in the car.
you have to keep track because if people are giving you a high level of year, you don't. you can't
Well,
put it
yeah,
in the book.
so, you know, they don't need to vote the next year.
Right.
Yeah, well, maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe they want 2 copies. Maybe they want to give a copy to the.
They autograph.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I got everyone's autograph except for Jane Calvert and the governor.
Actually, no, that is true. I think that if you make an autograph copy, it seems even more special. So I would say that would be. Yeah.
Fine book.
Exactly. Signed copy. You could even be at the meeting and just sitting at the table. And
People wanting.
say, who would you like to pay it out to?
No, I roaster once a year.
Oh, yeah, you guys can, Courtney Rock. Okay, so I think that's a good idea. We should find out from this holiday party. Okay. I think that's it for membership. That,
That raises another idea. I think that we should consider going to some of the annual outdoor events, and setting up a booth and having a couple of things such as getting a drawing for the book or something else, have some coloring pages for kids. I've done this with a couple of other organizations, and you get a lot of emails from people stopping by. And I think one of the things that we could do to make it a little more fun is to come up with, say, a Delaware Revolutionary War quiz for people to take. Have them fill it out and have a drawing, give them a drawing or whatever. Gets them right, have a drawing, give them a gift. And that's really, the idea is to give away something, whether it's the Chotsky, or a book or something else. If for little kids to come up and get something like the picture of the mansion, the color, do that sort of thing. Get on it. Go to places like Dale. They have reenactors at the Dale battlefield, shooter, and get a set up a table there. All other people who are interested in the time period. So give out pamphlets, like this all year. Not only to help friends, but to help with plantation programs. So it's just a matter of getting a couple of volunteers, we can spread it around, getting the list on the work. That would be perfect.
they are popular.
They are.
Yeah. Well, in order to do that, we had to identify several events. In the future, and then get a couple of volunteers who
Sure.
can do it.
Well, what we can do is get a schedule. I'll work on that, get a schedule. I don't know about, much bigger than, right. But, Newcastle County. Festivals.
Yeah. And the Rockwood Museum.
Yeah, yes. And the table. It's just a matter of register ahead of time. Just have people go there with the tent, umbrella, shade all. I would say for the Hell Burns House, I would say the ice cream festival this year. they have little things like, from the colonial era. Examples of packets of tea. The colonial era, stand, just full. Different maps and coloring of maps, the color of kids and so forth. Parents are looking for a lot of things to do with you when you deal with the students and stuff like that. It's amazing.
Were you there all day? I know they've asked us in the past to, we usually coincide out. Then we have to, but they said they get several thousand. And that they went there all day.
I did a shift and there were other, members from the Alan Burns house. So forth. While I was there. It's got a lot of kids and parents with them, their names and everything. But then we have to come up with a way of following up, have something just like that. With follow up. To get in touch. Even if, say we get 100 games and only 5 or 6 members, it's still some people may not have reached. And also, we're giving out pamphlets to visit the organization. Just part of our job, your job, our job is to spread the word.
Yeah.
I think something interactive with that. It's like a one-page quiz or some.
They have these things like that are pretty popular now at festivals that are like prize wheels. So basically it's like that wheel of fortune type thing, except they're not on the ground. And what gets, depending on what you land on, you have a fact about something, great fact, and just make it more interactive that way. And then usually if you get the answer right, they get something. I think that if you capture the kids, capture the parents, the goal really should be to have something that kids can do at the table, and then that keep them occupied for a couple of minutes, and then talk to parents too. So, but yeah, the target really should be like an 8th grade, if not younger, sort of like educational. And you don't want to be too easy, you don't want to be too simple, but yeah, definitely having something on the table that the kids can do, coloring is great, something that they can take home that says, or anything like that, but it should be something that's not too difficult. We've done events before where we had with craft, that are just like way too complicated for a 3-year-old, 5-year-old, and it's just pain. So you want to make sure that it's something. But yeah, it's a good idea. It's just a matter. I think the other part too is like the training, making sure that everybody who's sort of at the table kind of knows what the talking points are. What we tend to do is we create sort of a cheat sheet of facts and figures. Kind of having the prize rules that we can set, you have like a script on those. So having a script makes volunteers feel more comfortable in that position. And prepared to, have those interactions without kind of having just somebody walk up to the table and say, who are you? Well, do you know about John Dickinson? And you can just go in 1,000 directions. So if we're more focused, and it's usually a better interaction. But the prize pools are really cheap. I think we talked about ours are really $100. But it's just a matter of creating sort of the touch points we want to. Like it could be facts about the mansion, facts about John Dickinson, exciting things coming up in the future.
Delaware, anything.
Anything.
Delaware, yeah, and also by the counties. We break it down by the counties.
So I think it's gonna be a little work to get to that point. It'll take some work to like kind of build that programming up and get everything set and kind of, create the table experience that you want people to have, because if they're not gonna come here, you can't just have a table. I've done this for years. It's really painful when you don't have good stuff. So
I'm sitting there looking at everyone walk by.
Oh, I've been almost every festival on the United States, usually environmental, but yeah. I think it's a good idea though.
Well, it seems like the main effort is putting it all together and figuring it out. And then you get used to doing it and it becomes a little more routine
Yeah.
and you don't have to reinvent it every time.
Yeah, you
So is
tweak
this something we'd like to try and, launch next year, maybe?
I think so.
We have time.
We'll work on it over the fall and the winter, get ready. And roll it out and see what the learning curve is.
I think we would obviously want to do this guys to make sure that we're covering interesting things and so,
The link is gonna be who's gonna volunteer for it
absolutely.
and set up and take it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Regularly. I mean, so.
With the tables and all the equipment, you wanna make sure you need the travel pieces.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's part of, if you're gonna get volunteers, you have to have it organized, so everybody knows, who's driving the pickup truck and, whatever is required. I think it's a great idea. I mean, it's something we can all get behind.
So we have, our volunteer coordinator has a table set up and we do some of that in which they promote all of HCA. And there are interactions and, some things. So it is just sort of reworking, those kind of activities. And it's something we've been doing a little bit more of and trying to,
Sure.
we need to continue to do more of it.
We can work with your coordinator.
And just sort of see, between ideas that you have, it's just looking at creating something. It's just, sort of seeing what the focus would be.
Yeah, and I think it's so perfect, we want to, like, obviously get members of the friends, but we also want people to come visit this location. So, multiple benefits.
And your coordinator would know somebody next. That would be appropriate for us.
I think it's some, it is just looking at those who would be most focused on the audience that and you all sort of look at the audience that you really, since it's a split between membership and visitation. And sometimes we're out going looking for volunteers, that's what she goes to look at, where individuals will come in and help us, so she's looking and targeting those kinds of volunteer focused events versus the tourist visitor or their history buffs and interested in history, but it's a broader group that she's focused on her audience.
So do we have enough, you're gonna look at a schedule.
Yeah, I'll look at the schedule. I'll start gathering and I'll contact everybody. Ask for suggestions for, I don't know anything about Sussex. What the annual fairs are. So but I'll get something from Newcastle and Chester County and Delaware County.
In Southern Delaware is hosting right now their festivals, they have it on their webpage, they have the festivals all year.
And it's just matter, like, I haven't looked for them. So I don't think anybody's hired.
I county tours sometimes is pretty good.
Yeah.
Newsletter too.
Yeah, and we can take a look at that. I'll try to find out what it takes to get in.
And
Usually if you're a nonprofit, it's reduced, depends on, they don't care because they're not a nonprofit. But I always believe that we're a nonprofit.
what about developing the focus of it, all of that in the target audience? Well, I think we've kind of narrowed that down, but why don't I take a crack at that?
We can coordinate just different ideas and put them around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we definitely need like a group to support. I'm a little concerned about my work personally, so.
What if
I'd love other people to help.
what if
Yeah.
Okay, great.
We need a committee,
Yeah.
a group, but, John, can you lead it or?
Sure, I'll start something and circulate memos and we can all join in, come up with deadlines when we have something done. First thing is find out what is out there, and then suggest some, I'll solicit ideas to what target audience should be, and what kind of material we should have, how many people will take the man the table. Yeah. Two, just so you can talk to someone, that's it, it's not that hard. Yeah, we would, we need some, you said, we need some table.
We could all take turns, and we don't have to dress in colonial garb, do we?
They would definitely get more people to stand up. This is the problem. This is the problem. If you have something like that, people will come, you know? I do think if you have any historical something, like it will really grab your attention. It will be cool. There's something to touch and feel. I'm a very tech. I like anything that's kind of.
Well, don't forget the adults, many years ago, it was at the News Journal. When we had our, that's SK Providence first Gulf War back, newspaper put out a 16-page supplement for kids on the war, what was it, so where was it, who were the peoples, who were the armies involved. And it was done, we purposely did it in as simple as we could to make it so that the civic clarity is the style, explain every child. It's well designed, so forth, and put it out, made it available to schools and mom. But adults went out. They were asking for extra copies, groups were asking for extra copies so they could distribute it, people would discuss it, and so forth. And we didn't even think of adults. You know, America was at war, and no one had explained it to me in terms of someone who wasn't familiar with that word or what was involved, logistics and stuff like that. So some of these things, you know, basic for children are actually going to catch on with some adults. As we get closer to 250 anniversary, more people start thinking, I gotta know about this. What was that? What was involved? It's going to catch on. You said Ken Burns is doing something, right? So remember what happened with the Civil War? So everybody wanted to know about the Civil War. So I think there's more publicity to the national level. All of us should step in, supply information, and help people discuss it in this thorough history of all aspects. All the people who were affected by it.
Okay,
So I'll put that as an action item to follow up in January.
Yes.
Okay,
we don't need a motion, let's do it.
No.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda item is, I'd like to introduce the new HCA director. You've introduced yourself already. Welcome to our meeting, to our group. I think that one question, whatever you want to say as an introduction, please do. One thing that I was interested in is a kind of a report of the status of the
Well, welcome. I know both of you, so we've been to some of the meetings, not all of them, so happy to be here. Amy has been with us now, so she is still learning lots of things. So and come to us with, there'll be a story about her in our upcoming newsletter, but she has 18 years as an educator and has worked tremendously in working as the director of diversity at the school where she was and has been working with us for the past year on that topic as well. So she knows not everyone on staff, but a lot of people, some knowledge but still a lot to learn. So I think she's learning about you all today. This is her introduction to you. And we're very excited about everything that is happening with at Dickinson, at the plantation, and we are looking at getting support for and moving forward with the visitor center. I'm in discussions with the secretary's office to look at how we're able to move forward with the design and construction plan so that we can then move into implementation phase. So we have support. I'm hoping to have some purchase orders in the next 2 weeks that will begin that work. I'm looking at hiring a project manager who will oversee the work at the site so that while we were not in the bond bill, that we have money coming from a different side of government to support the project. So we are looking to try to complete the project at the end of the governor's term. We are going to see if that is at all possible, given the supply demands and the construction field. I'm not so certain of that, but that's the directive that has been given to me to do that. I'm not sure that is, given all the other projects that are simpler than this one and the delays that occur with those, I'm not sure that it's possible, but that's what we're going to work for.
And when
where are
is
you?
his term up?
I'm sorry.
When is his term up?
The January 25
Okay,
is the election in November of 24. And so his term ends, he leaves office in January of 25.
okay, so 2 years.
2 years,
Um,
yes. So, we have a lot.
Where are the drawings and specs of the architect? Where are they? Have they wrapped those up?
We don't have those yet. I mean, we have the concept plans, we have feasibility and concept plans, we do not have the drawings in here.
Okay,
But that's that's what we're working through right now.
gotcha.
We're trying to move forward with that. Because we're following and working through the state regulations for that as a major capital project. We're looking at how to speed that process up.
And you kind of do all the interpretive.
Yes, we have all the.
You have to have that when
that-
you open up.
Yes, that has to be, and Dan and Lori and I, we've all had that discussion, that we need to hire the exhibit design firm.
Right.
We need to take the interpretive plan that we have in place and move forward with that. And the concept is, it is the John Dickinson plantation that has been here for, centuries, eons. There's a lot of people that have populated and lived and utilized this land. We need to tell the entire story from native communities that were here before, through all of the individuals who lived and worked here and died, and we now know where they are. And this visitor center is going to be able to allow us to tell the entire story. And there will be exhibit spots that we will certainly have an exhibit that will go in, but that exhibit has the ability to change over time. It will not, be there for 100 years, the same exhibit, that we can change it up and put in. I would hope that we would be building a section in that would, different sections that can rotate over time, that can tell different sub themes and some stories. So it isn't, there is a big picture, but there's a lot of little pieces as well that we need to be able to highlight through time. So we need to be able to talk about Dickinson and his family, but I want to talk about the women and the role they played here. We need to talk about the indentured and the enslaved that were here. We need to talk about, the free communities that are here. Everybody is here making this plantation work. We need to work at how did this piece of land function over time. How the native community used it is different, how Dickinson used it. It's different how we're using it now. Even Dickinson's time, it's changed. It changed after his time. And we don't focus a lot on that after the Dickinson time. We sort of cut that off, and that's, that it plays into sort of the ag culture that continued after. I mean, I think there's some portion of that as well. So I think that there'll be lots of discussions on that. And so there'll be a track that will be working on the building itself. There'll be a track that will be working on the content and the exhibits and that interpretation. So there'll be 2 streams running, and Gloria and her group are going to be on one, and there'll be another group working on the building, and certainly it's going to be overlap and intersection so that everyone knows what's happening as they go. Especially, we need to ensure that the interpretation area, the exhibit areas fit into the building that's being planned. That's all part of it. I don't know that the people who are building the building aren't going to worry about the content too much. They're not going to be involved in doing what the exhibit labels say. That's not going to be their role, but that will be. And the other part of that is that there is the National Trust Grant that we have that's working with the descendant communities. And I think we're getting ready to move on that and hire someone to help us work with that, reaching out into the community, trying to identify people that are individuals that potentially are associated with the burial ground, so that we can look at what we're going to do with that section. That is a significant and new undertaking that we need to take very seriously and really look at how we engage with everyone on, so that that everyone is aware of what's happening, and that's part of the story here as well. We are looking on development of the trail system, the pathways around that will start to link us all the way through past the burial ground over to St. Joe's. And that's something that over this winter, we're looking to put in place. So by the spring, we have something that's available and we can start moving around the property. That's sort of part one as we continue to work on the building and the landscape and all that footprint on the other side. So it's a major project and will be it is a priority that is on the short list from the Department of State. So that's.
Are there plans to do anything? Does the mansion itself need any work, or how does that tie in? Is that part of the interpretive package?
That's part of
also?
the interpretive plan. There are no, we've been doing ongoing work as the mansion needs it.
Right.
We've had some discussion about some improvements, but right now the focus has been on the view. And I'm going to say with the next governor and the next administration, and with your all's help, that sort of becomes the next part. That so that come 2026, everything is good. Where the goal is to get the visitor center in place and that new piece. And then it's looking, okay, what else do we need to do in the mansion as that part? And you know, it's ongoing preventative maintenance and maintenance as things go wrong. And I'm unaware of any major issues right now. I mean, we have continued archaeology that's going on, research. I think that it will focus on interpretation of the stories that we're telling in the house and on the grounds as a whole, and what piece of the story goes where. You know, that there's going to be segments that, you know, what we tell, you know, in the mansion, what we tell on the grounds, what we tell on certain portions of the path. You know, they're really different, and all of those I think are still being worked through. I mean, there is no, this is happening here right now. I think that will be up to the interpretive group between Annie and Gloria and that team and some others that will probably will have others involved in that discussion.
What about I forget the name of it, the student project that the architect,
Yes.
is that still in play?
That's part of the bigger path system, and we're sort of looking at whether, I haven't seen the numbers yet. And so we'll be looking at how, right now, I believe that's part of our bigger plan for the visitor center, not for this path system that we're doing now. But they're still looking at doing area of reflection. What are we calling it? Or that, okay,
Yeah.
like that.
Is that area of reflection?
Yes, I'm like, oh, okay. Yes.
I couldn't remember.
Yes, so, you know, and I think that we need to have further engagement with the community about that space.
Well,
And
I think this commitment to doing this. So something that we talk about. We decide to set at the table and have something that we can show people.
Yes.
And start getting people aware of it.
Yes.
Anticipation.
Right, all we have right now are the concept renderings that I think you all have seen before. And so we now would be moving into sort of the design phase and sort of putting it really on paper.
Okay.
And we're hoping to continue our work with Bernard, who's been with us this far, but we have to work through the state system on that to make sure we're doing everything properly.
So are you being actively involved in this as well? With the park?
I think that certainly you all have been involved in some of the discussions and some of our meetings, and I think if there is a representative that wants to, one or two people to join some of the discussion, certainly we're open to that. It's just looking at how you want to do that, so that, I think it's part of, we want the community sort of involved. It's not going to be the construction portion isn't going to be a big community involvement. It's those who are tight, because we're just trying to move it quickly. So if there's a member of the board or two that wants to, I mean, we'll have regular meetings set up. We can let you know when those are, and certainly have some, to participation in as we're looking at that.
I think there's any sort of groundbreaking.
Oh, certainly, all of that, yes.
We love people, people love our networks, so we're allow for that, but as only something that people enjoy.
Right.
Yes, but I'm really for capital parks right now too. Appreciate how difficult, how much work this is, and how much you guys do. Good job.
So we're working on it. So we'll certainly give you, if there's anything we we'll certainly be in touch with you, just keep you in the loop on that. Certainly that we will have a lot more information at the upcoming, by January. Is that your next meeting? January?
Yeah, and you've made the interpreter available to all of everybody. Should have received a copy of it even recently. So we had a chance to read through it.
What's the total cost?
We're, it's at least 16 million. We won't know until we have estimates, but that's what we're sort of looking at this point. But that's different. That's just the visitor center area. That would probably include the area reflection that's in that. So there's the path, the trail system now is going out from the mansion to St. John's. The connection between the visitor center and that path system is part of that 16 million that we push.
So this is the largest investment in this property ever?
Yes.
That's something.
So the visitor center, I like your holistic approach, find land, one way, down Dickinson another way, and so on and so forth. And I would only argue that we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that.
Oh, he's at the core.
That's what I'm trying to get at. In other words, I think it's going to be really important because structure builds behavior and builds thought, and how that building is structured, and how it's allowed for education that would happen here. That education also regarding Dickinson's contribution to democracy is going to be very important, and that's something that I think when we put the lines on the paper in the building, I think that's going to be very important to make sure that that's prominent in the center, because that's what people are going to see first.
Right. They see first, and the building sort of opens up. The concept that we have at this point, it's sort of, there's a glass wall that you look out to see the property. It's like this is part of what Dickinson held, and this is what gave them wealth. And the idea is, what is that the site is all tied into that complicated history that we have. our lives are complicated now, they were just as complicated then, so we have to figure, I'm interested in finding a little bit of what was going on then with what's going on now, so it's relevant to today. You know, and he had decisions to make, we all have decisions to make. And so he had decisions in running government, he had decisions in operating the site in the plantation. So, you know, I think that, you know, it's a ways down, so we have that outline. But yes, I mean, the only reason this particular site was determined to be important to the state of Delaware is because of John Dickinson's role in the creation of this country. You know, so that's why this site and not some other 300 acres somewhere else down the road in Kent County was selected as a museum site and it's a historic site. So it is, you know, he's there, he's involved in all of these decisions and what we're looking at, you know, so he's there.
And you can see that in the interpretation as well. And how it does reach out to the other components that Suzanne mentioned. But that's one part of it is why was this site based and what was going on. And the civics lesson.
Right, I mean, the idea is, it's all about civics, and what is it civics today? And this is, you know, the decisions made then inform us today, and it's trying to, I would like to just truly make it relevant to citizens today. How do we make it, you know, why does it matter that we put all this money, we invest, you know, by the end, $20 million in this building, in this 300 acres? You know, there should be some investment, something for the community should see value in this, and we should be giving value back to the community. That we're educating, the purpose is to educate, to share, to understand all of it, so that everybody sees their place and their value in this bigger picture. All the citizens of Delaware and those that visit from elsewhere. Is questions? I mean, if there's it's going to be long and it's short and complicated. I wish it was a little longer. I wish we had the money left here, and I've shared that with people. I wish we did have a whole other year, but we're going to do our best, and we will see what we can do. And it will, I'm sure we will have some interesting discussions as we look at the interpretive theme and that label copy. That I love your concept of while the tablet that was supposed to be for the kids was really for adults, you know, the idea that, you know, we are writing for like a 6th grade level, and we want everybody to be able to grasp it, and the kids and the adults in there, and get them to understand what we're doing.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Okay.
Thank you very much
Certainly.
for making the time to come and talk to us. What's that?
No, it's good. I mean, I'm sure we'll have more discussions, I'm sure, you know.
I understand there was times on the board that it's going to be a part of it. Big, wonderful, exciting time that was state is focusing here after all the years.
Right, and that doesn't, I mean, and there is I don't want to forget, while the focus is all on all this new, the historic part is the key. I mean, that's, you know, the house, the grounds, the whatever other archaeology we can find, that also is, we wouldn't, if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be doing this, you know? So we need to recognize that. So if there are, you know, this idea that there is, you know, a need to do anything else on the mansion, you know, all the other outbuildings are reproductions and those need to stay there as well, but the focus does become the building, the historic structure itself, and looking at if there are indeed any needs there. It has been a while since there's been any major work done on it, and we will maintain it sort of through preventative maintenance and paintings and repairs and things like that. And if there's something that's more serious, we're just gonna have to look at that and see, and I would hope that when we walk away and with the new governor, that there's, still, there's, work will never end down there. It keeps, wood always has to be replaced, it always has to be painted, there's always repointing, there always are things that need to be done to maintain the historic structure, so that's never ending. So if, we will keep that in mind as well.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Now we need to talk, the next item is the state report, and you have very graciously sent them to us, so we had a chance to look at them. Thank you.
You're welcome. We had an interesting time at the Historic Society of Pennsylvania. Annie, Bernie, and I went through a variety of documents. I happen to have looked at the Samuel Dickinson ledger. And you saw the picture on the last page of what the ledger looks like.
Right.
It's 2 feet by 2 feet. It is fascinating. It is definitely his merchant ledger, and he is selling a lot of rum. And a lot of other things going on. We barely just looked at them, we haven't transcribed anything, but we are interested in maybe getting a scanned copy of the entire ledger, so we have time to go through it. There's one area of history that we have not focused on as much as we can, and that is about how this plantation was established. Who was here? How many enslaved individuals? Where did you get the bricks to build that house? All of those questions are still out there, and the ledger may help us. This isn't the only ledger, so I still have some more research to do. There's an earlier ledger, and there may even be another type of household ledger as opposed to the merchant ledger. So we may want to come to you about getting a scanned copy of the ledger itself, so that we can have really good scans to work with for our transcription.
Archives?
This is the Historical Society of Pennsylvania.
Oh.
And Annie, you want to talk about anything that you saw?
I know that, so many folders. Well, but, one of the things that, stuck out to me was the American Folder Dickinson program. We had some images of it previously, but, actually getting to see it in person, take images of it, take notes about it and how it's structured, really helps us transcribe it now, with more accuracy and a better understanding of how the pages are laid out and things like that. So that was the one thing that sticks in my head. So I went.
Also, we went to Tacoma, Washington. We did a presentation on ending erasure and recognizing African Americans in the cultural landscape. Bertie did a section on HCA and the race and equity statement. We also had Amy doing the theory of interpretation, and I did a section on partnerships and funding. It was very well received. We had a lot of questions. In fact, we ran over time, but we definitely had positive reactions, and we also had to write up the proceedings. This our presentation for the proceedings. So and we will let you know.
Good.
The National Park Service actually approached us a couple of years ago. First, there was a person who came out and toured the site. They identified themselves as part of the national park, but that was all. And then they left. And then about 6 months later, we got an invite to a PowerPoint presentation that they were doing nationally, and it was about sites that have expanded their interpretation from the national landmark application. And we were highlighted. We had no idea that we were going to be highlighted, but they were very much interested in the stories that we had of the people who lived here, including the indentured servant, the free blacks, tradesmen, and the tenant farmers. And they were interested in whether we were interested and updating our knowledge, our application. Our resources, we're engaged in other things at the moment, but they came back to us earlier this year. And Amanda Casper, who was from the National Park Service, decided that they could hire in Kayla Hurd. Some of you may have met her at the annual meeting in June. And she said she spent several weeks reviewing our information and looking at the application and from the form and see where we could be up to. It's just the beginning of this project. And she has, I have not seen her final report yet. I think she just turned it in. And so as soon as I get it, we'll be happy to share some of it on the ideas that she had on how to update our application.
So I will throw in that the John Dickinson was the first nomination presented by the state for the National Register of every place in Delaware. It was the first one, and how it was presented in 1971, 61. The how we would do it now is quite different. So, and this is not the only application or nomination that needs to be updated within the state of Delaware, but certainly is a significant. And there has been discussion with our SHPO office on how to do it. So I think it's great that we're working with Park Service and they're offering some support for that.
It will include the things that we're talking about, sharing information. So it's not strong. We were a landmark thing, we're gonna be a landmark. Now, that has not changed. We just have more information, more relevant information than what we had.
When the public accesses the records from the National Register nomination, they will see a more complete story here. So the broader audience will have access to current information about John Dickinson and the John Dickinson plantation. So I think that's the real plus. That I think we sort of all know it, but now the world will know it. And they just won't look and see this 1961 nomination. They'll see something from the 21st century that will be able to provide additional information about it. I mean, it has information on the building before any renovation was done. The structure will be different, the layout. The National Park Service still, and when they look at their records, they think the house looked like it did in 1961 and changes that made since then. So it will give everybody current information.
So we have a couple of outreach programs and activities. Some here on the site over 18th Street today. Dan's gonna be firing lectures. And we'll have Carpenter, Dan Davis, who will help build some of the original outbuildings here in the 1980s. He is going to be showing fancy table making. We will be having candle licking and this without fire grill and the smokehouse operation. It's an all-day event.
And anybody who wants to learn how to clean a musket, I'm perfectly happy to teach that day.
New York State has a problem. Law went into effect September 1st that you are not allowed to fire a weapon where families are, any public area. So they're interpreting it that the black powder exhibitions by the reenactors of the Battle of Plattsburgh cannot go on. All over the state, they canceled reenactments because of the law. So gotta be careful.
I mean, all they would have to do is change the word of the law, because technically it is, those reproductions are not firearms, but they are weapons.
Right.
And it's a fine institution.
Right now, in New York, we won't go on.
No, because, yeah, because, you're gonna see voting it, you're gonna have plenty of time to either completely or rough. It's a better club than just that, so, yeah, it's, I forget the exact word. Something like that, is when they transition to firearms unless it's in a certain class of repeating rifle and fairly.
We also are gonna be attending the Blackbird Creek Fall Festival. We'll be doing fashion making. We get, hundreds, talk about children and adults. That we get there.
Where is that one at Blackbird Creek? Are they still having it down there?
Yeah. It's fine, it's great, they have food trucks, so you get that, so I'm happy. It's just nonstop, literally, the line for our table is nonstop the whole day.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I just want to give you a heads up, if you have something really, really fun and the kids are there at the table, parents think that you as a babysitter and they will walk away. So be prepared for that.
Yeah,
We're not making too much fun for the children.
Or load them up with temporary tattoos all over.
Also, we're gonna be doing the lantern tours, on October 21st, so that evening. We will have 2 lantern tours. Some of you have been on before. So we will be doing the sea shanties, so you'll have to bring the same voice if you want to sign up. And also, throwing nuts into the fire.
During the lantern tour?
Nutcrackers, so you throw chestnuts into the fire, make a wish.
Oh, cool.
Very chestnuts.
You have a time for these at the Blackbird.
The Blackbird Creek Fall Festival is all day.
Start at 9.
I think it starts at 9. I think come out with they usually come out with a summer band, and they will come and play, and that, it starts all off. And they're there until at least, I think, 4, they bring for like 3:30. The lantern tour is going to be starting probably 6, I think, and the other will be 7.
Blackbird Creek's good. But you probably have to be there.
No, we're gonna be there like 8. Like set up everything.
Yeah.
Sachets we'll be planning to have here.
We just have the box, and so we just keep bringing them out, we each have their own little morning kettle. We have 5 to 10 bowls and spoons, and they can fill it in, and they take their sachet home with them, and then they come back and make another one, and then the parents come back and make another one.
That's most of the
That's good
children.
activity.
Adults and children, adults love it. One lady comes back every year because she says she puts them in her car, and another lady comes back every year because she puts it in her son.
Well, I think if you said children left unattended will be given a can of soda and a free kitten.
Eunice, must be cleaning training starts at 3:15.
And of course, we're going to be at Market Fair. I only have one day down, that's the day that we're going to be there, we're planning on being there, but it is a 2-day event. So it's November 5th and November 6th. And again, we're gonna be doing sachet making. I have 2 presentations to give this year, well, for the rest of the year that I know. One is in Storehouse, Odessa, they're having a professional development day. So I was asked to give a presentation on our discoveries that we have found here on the plantation. And also I'll be part of the Federation Delaware Annual Conference.
Where's that being held?
I believe it's virtual. It's a virtual
program that you-
As far as I know, it's only open to the historic houses in the first half. They do have another guest speaker. I do not know if it's open for public. Brian did not say it was.
Where, do you mind sending the Preservation Delaware, email?
I don't know that they haven't really promoted it yet. I think they're just finalizing the schedule. I think it's October 20th and 21st, so Thursday and Friday.
Also, a note in July, Lori gave the one presentation at Reno Burns House.
I heard you gave one, and I missed it. You need to come and talk myself. We are in the process right now of finding a new staff member. And I did want to bring up, and you know, Jane has been sending out Ellen already, that Jane does have a a John Dickinson symposium in October. I gave you the link here, a whole list of people talking about this. Aspects of John Dickinson. So it is virtual and it is live, so you can either go or you can watch it that day.
And it's the same day as one of the days of the Preservation Delaware Conference.
Yeah.
So,
And she scheduled last year, and it was all because of the pandemic, and so it is definitely going to be verified.
The library company does these presentations, they archive it, so.
Yeah.
You should definitely watch it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Watch it out there.
Library and Shield Center are all working together. That's why they can offer free.
Suzanne, thank you. So previously announced was the Award of Excellence that is being awarded to both the John Dickinson Foundation and the overall division. And that's for the Search, Discovery, and Commission Programming at the African Burial Ground. Lori suddenly got busy and so is unable to attend the ASLH conference. And Kenny's not available either. So I will be accepting on behalf of the site. So we will officially have the award Friday. So I do have that. I'll put that back for everybody to see. I have no idea what this is. Suzanne talked a lot about the trails already. The trails started off, the original plan was to have visitors center first and then do the trail. And so we received an initial $2 million. So that was in July of 2019. And so that was to do the initial scoping and some other things. So some of that money went towards some of that initial work for the visitor center. And it was supposed to be followed with the next several fiscal years with more money and increasing amount to actually build the visitor center. But then something happened in 2020 that kind of derailed that. So we didn't get those funds. So we had to kind of shift gears because of funding. Some of the money went to some repairs in the house, and there were trees that were down, things like that on the landscape. And then we officially shifted gears to move over to the trail. We did receive one bid last Friday. We are reviewing it. There's some things we have to go over with the folks regarding, because there are a couple of questions we're going to have for the bidder. It was open, we only opened it to trail construction companies because we wanted to limit the impact. And a lot of times, if you just kind of open it up, road construction companies have been on a trail and they bring in their roadside equipment, which just does massive damage to the land. And so we limited it to the people who could actually do the project now. There were several groups that were interested. We do require people to come to the and only one of those ended up showing up. We asked, the others how come, one got back to the project, the other one didn't respond, we're not sure. I guess we lucked out a little bit that the one that did come has some experience in Delaware, so that's nice. And they know, some of the folks in Delaware. The nice thing is, the type of equipment they use is no wider than 5 feet. So we're going to have kind of a minimal impact as soon as they said that. All of the archaeologists are in the meeting like, so there's still more archaeological work to be done, as I mentioned here. And if you're really curious, I can get into more detail. But the Section 106 process, because we did receive federal money for the section of the trail that goes from the current farmland across the southern end of our property over into the near property next door, and onto their property. Since we received federal funding for that, we have to go through the Section 106 process. Since NOAA was the agency that gave it to us, they're the ones running that process. They run it a little bit, every federal agency runs it a little bit differently. So it's kind of a learning curve for us because it's not one we've worked with before in this process. Currently, the Delaware Nation is the only federally recognized tribe that has responded to the consultation. We've had an initial meeting with their tribal historic preservation office. Their comments and concerns basically match our state historic preservation office comments and concerns. So everybody's effectively on the same page. We are going to be getting a proposal from an archaeological consultant based on those comments by the 20th. That gives us, something to react to and something for the tribe and NOAA and SHPO to react to. And then make adjustments as necessary. So the plans that were sent out Hopefully nobody's trying to clear those. But you can zoom in and take a look. There are certain areas where there's a greater concern for archaeological impact. There will be some additional work, or we will avoid those areas. And then there's other areas where there's just going to be monitoring done as the work is being done, because it's unlikely to hit something, but still possible. And then there's certain areas where there won't be monitoring done, like especially on this near property. Most of that area has already been altered with the road and parking lot and things like that, so you really don't need to spend additional money on monitoring. There's still a clause in the contract that if the very unexpected happens, that they run into something while they're doing work, they have to halt work and need to notify us. We are also, Suzanne has sent letters to the federally recognized tribe, even though it's not a federal consultation process, we are still doing a consultation process with the federally recognized tribes for the portion of the trail work that are going to be on our property that aren't covered by the federal process. And so, again, we want to make sure everybody's aware of what's going on. We're also going to be talking to those kind of with a Delaware, speaking to the state recognized tribes as well. And again, just to make sure everybody's aware, because we know there are Native American artifacts, especially in the one area. So that is ongoing. And as Suzanne said, we expect construction to start this winter. And then Suzanne also mentioned the project with the Senate community using the rubric, and so that information is there. We did receive that grant. We actually asked for $3,000 and they said, we like the project so much, we're going to give you $5,000. So we were happy about that. And we just received our proposal. Again, we went out, had a chance to speak briefly to Dr. Chu at Montpelier. She is currently the interim director there. She was one of the original authors of this rubric. And so I asked her, what would you, we're going to be using the rubric you wrote to do this project. What do you think we should look out for in potential consultants as far as the best possible consultant? And she said, you really want to have somebody who's local and who knows the local community. If you bring somebody from the outside, they don't know people, and you're going to be starting way behind, and there's going to be potentially some trust issues with the community. So we did reach out to several local consultants. Two of them just had too many projects going on, so one has put in a proposal, and that was received on Friday as well. And so we're reviewing that to see if there's any tweaks we want to do. There's nothing much more.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or anything? Next item, and we're going to move on to the other now. We need to talk about the December party. Last year, we did not have it because of COVID, and we sent everybody a card. I haven't heard anything that says we can't have it this year, or is that not the case?
we're going to suggest that you not have a social event in the house at this point. Certainly, we still have some concerns with COVID, but I think we have at this point tried to keep all of the activities that are in the house more educational and not have social activities. I think once we have the visitor center, we're going to have a nice space there. If there is an opportunity to do something educational, then that's something we can certainly talk about. But I think that in terms of social sort of parties, I think we're trying to move all of those from the mansion.
Is that because it's too hard on the mansion, or is that just a policy?
It's a combination. I think that we don't normally let food in the mansion, so that's part of it. I think that having that many people at one time is not good, but I mean, we haven't been doing, we turned weddings down before and after. It's sort of, the focus is let's keep the educational programs in the mansion at a smaller limit and size. And so that's sort of the policy that we put in place. And I think the the holiday activity is a nice event, and it's I don't know if it's considered a fundraiser or not. I mean, I think it's
Not really.
you know,
It's
but
kind of a thank you.
and just trying to figure out if there's a way to sort of come up with sort of a more to keep the programs focused on education versus just the social activity.
Is this true of other similar profits of the same?
It is for, yes, I'm trying to think, I don't know that we don't have social activities in any of the other buildings. So, I mean, it is sort of division wide.
What is the building on Route 13?
Well, these are the ones that we operate as our museum. So I'm not talking about every building. I mean, certainly Belmont Hall is different. I mean, that's run by the Friends. And so they do different things. The conference center is different because that's a conference center. I'm speaking specifically of the 5, now 6 museums that we operate for educational purposes. The others are different. So I think it is just looking at how we're going to how do we engage with the public. You know, I think historic sites and historic houses across the country are dealing with this issue all the time. In every institution I've ever worked at in Virginia, Delaware, Florida, it's like, where is that line between the social activities and the wear and tear on the house versus the educational? So I think that that's the policy as we move forward. Yes, I mean, there's educational opportunities to do some things, and it's just sort of trying to figure out how to, you know, there's speakers that can come in the spaces, or, you know, there's only so many people you can fit in there. I think it's, you know, part of the reason to have a visitor center is to be able to do bigger, better things. And then to save the house as the historic resource, and to do tours and programming that way, so that we can protect it some and keep its focus on education and keep the social activities and, you know, those kinds of, that are still important because we still want community to feel part of it, and it's a balance that we have to work out and try to figure out. And that's a challenge for us. And we just have to figure out how to do that, how to change up how we do things.
So you had a suggestion, since we don't have a visitor center?
Yes, I mean, we can do something elsewhere. I mean, if you want to, I mean, certainly we can, there's still opportunities to do other things that you could sponsor. I can certainly speak to Belmont Hall. We can look at other buildings. I mean, there's certainly other ways of doing something somewhere else and still to represent, you know, the things to the, you know, things from the Friends of documents.
Is there an opportunity to have more of the social gathering here, or is this, yeah, you're in this current visitor center?
Yes, I mean, I think there's ability to do some things here.
So you see, it is limited.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we were on top of it.
Yeah, just wondering if there is a way to sort of like the social aspect here, or to connect to the mansion with some educational programming during that holiday party. That might be a way to kind of still have what we used to have, but also respect, like, I completely get it, it's not the wear and tear factor. Value connection to go back to the site is real and important, I think, as a board. I think that's what I would like to see our members here, if they can, and engagement if they can, but if it's not possible, I think that there's a different site to have more of a party. I think that's
I mean, it's sort of the concept when you do the annual meeting of those things here, and there's and there's a speaker, so it's trying to sort of formulate that in the winter season.
Yeah.
You know, doing something like that, that still gets people to move around and sort of explore the campus and, learn about the site. The focus is always, this angle of let's still continue to explore the history and what's going on and, from that perspective.
In the past, years, since we haven't had an event on the what number of visitors did you have? That we did have some here. Were there a lot more people that came to that?
I can pull apart.
The first year that they used it again. And then it started dropping off. Yeah.
Did you expect that happening?
No,
It was more 50 or 70.
Yeah.
It was packed. That first year was really packed.
That would take first year.
That was when Valerie got everyone together to restate the holiday app.
I think, I would say I think
I agree.
so if we often we have breaks, so we have a break from this event. A year after the break, we might see more engagement, so I think that we could potentially see more people coming if we were to host a gathering this year. So,
But if there was a way to do some activity here and then there's time segments in which you take people from here to the house, you're keeping people flowing around and they're in and out.
I think that would be my ideal preference, like to have that kind of feasible to do this, but I really value.
You really value what?
Being on site with our members and giving them the ability to have, because really what it gives them is access to kind of a private tour, which is not, I mean, they can come here and kind of get a tour, but it's really special to kind of engage in that way with the site.
People would be interested in that fact that we have to hear and bring the traffic and towards. We talk about regarding the area and the farms there and try to have a couple of things people are person. Because I can see some people here.
Yeah, I think what we do is we probably take groups of 10 or something like that, or,
It would also talk about the issue
exactly.
that we've always had. And
Yeah, I think you could take groups of 10 and say, all right, well, we'll take groups of 10 or whatever. And people will, if it's a nice day, people might just want to wander around and look at, the trail system, which might be, sort of the work might be getting in the way of that.
Yeah.
So, and at that time of year, it's dark, time, so like, I think that,
I'm sorry, we're very dark.
yeah.
And we have a few outside lights now that are always on, but it does get dark. And even though the lights on, it's still dark.
So in my vision, if I were to see us doing this here, I would say, we have our sort of freshman tables at the edges and we have some seats around the people on it, but a lot of times people will just want to kind of go out. So, we may want to think about the portability of the food and making it not difficult because there may not be tables and stuff like that. We won't have room for that. So I think those are things that we should consider.
You could have the people that the program be at the house and be
Exactly.
outside, and this is just where people gather.
Absolutely.
And so there's no talking, there's no need for, there's chairs around the
I
outside.
think this is the social, if you just want to socialize, because some people just want to socialize, some people just want to see people and other people want to engage with the site and take the experience like
They can ride the golf cart with Gloria not driving, so.
Maybe more exciting for you.
That could be,
That would be an extra cost.
Only get back.
Only emergency bill.
Well, the question is always the weather. I mean, it's that time of year when
Yeah,
it could be chillingly cold
Yeah,
and windy. You know, I've been to the Christmas parade in Lewis, Delaware in a t-shirt, and I've also been there where I just could not get warm. So
Yeah, I
that's
think we
the
face
issue.
that, I think we face that every year regardless of the location. When we're offering it inside, we're offering inside, we're not saying it can be outside, so I think even when we were completely mentioned, it's still, you know, if the weather is bad, it's bad, so. I think that other than the transport from here to there, people want to take, you know, tours, and, you know, also if the weather's bad, we'll probably not get as many people showing up that day. So I think that would.
Well, I think that's the best alternative, frankly, is to try and do something here and offer tours.
Yeah.
Offer a visit, because I think people will really enjoy that.
Yeah, especially with some of the exciting things coming up in the next 21 months. I think that getting people back there should be a real priority for us.
Well, it's also, it's an opportunity to bring somebody who maybe is not a member and introduce them to the place and to other people.
you know, one time, and this was years ago, the Friends offered, well, it wasn't Friends, it was the plantation staff, gave tours of like the attic and at the mansion, and, you know, places that are normally off limits. And boy, that was so fascinating. I think every member has been through the mansion once or twice at least, but not necessarily up to, you know, the forbidden places, and talked, you know, pointed out that the beams that are still scorched from the fire. And that was something that would really draw a lot of people, I think. And, you know, just to bring them up in small groups and show them the places that the public doesn't normally see.
I mean, if you want to really show the importance of the new visitor center, try to get 50 people in the building, so. It'll really help sell that new visitor center.
I think you need a book to get people to come. I don't think our members are going to come just to go see the mansion, because if they're members, they're interested, they buy in here and other activities that they participate in, like making, someone speaking on topics that all of them and bring them out. And the tours can be part of that, but I don't know.
Oh, you also have the other issue in the past was food. The Nancy service and making 18th century, recreating 18th century food, or similar to 18th century food. That was also a big part.
Yeah, it's always good, too.
I don't know, whatever, I'm not
Yeah,
in
not
touch
sure.
with in a while.
Well, you're right, that was the principal attraction, was to come and enjoy one another in that environment and have that food, and which made it very interesting. I don't see how you can do that here.
I think we could have the food here. I think we have a consensus with her. She's still, you know.
She makes it all at home,
in
and
business.
she just brings it up and sets it up.
Yeah, yeah. She was just like.
Is the
kind of-
caterer still available?
We're not sure. We don't know. We have to check on that.
I think the last time she said it was her last.
And that was a couple of years ago.
And that was a
Well,
couple-
an alternative could be allowed, I guess, like they make delicious things too, or, but
Or
probably.
you can call back home, see if that'll be something.
That's why I'm calling.
That's exactly what I meant to be doing to begin with.
Yeah, I think in the interest of time,
Yeah.
that we probably should establish a committee to talk about this offline.
I don't think we're gonna reach a decision.
Yeah, because we already know our parameters.
We need to vote on whether or not we like this kind of idea of having the food here and the educational thing of the pension, or we need to vote on that, or to keep it.
I don't think there are other options we have. It's not like we've got to choose an option, we're going to choose one or the other. The option is to have food here, gathering here, and maybe something like this.
Yes, to make sure everyone.
Well, I think the question is, do we try to have a party or just send cards out. That's really what we should be voting.
Or send a card again.
Yeah,
I'm party, I'm team party.
okay, I'll second.
I'm a team speaker, I think. I want somebody to tell me something, it could be John here or somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I would think there would be, someone from HCA would be available to talk about what was happening in the future. So there would be that, you know, I think if there was someone that could speak to a historic topic, I mean, that's something that you all could work out. I mean, I think it is, if it is a discussion of going into a behind the scenes area, that's something we can talk about. I've not been opposed to those in the past, as long as it's physically possible to do that. And I'm not 100% certain of that right now. So there's more discussion on that.
So, yes.
So anyway, so that's something we still have to, the idea is to make it attractive and to get your members something special. We understand that. So it's trying to work through that through a committee.
All right, all in favor of having the holiday party, say aye. Opposed?
I want to do something, but
Yeah, we
not.
can try and figure out what we can have here. Is there something that we could do? To create.
Well,
You could never jump.
Piece of cheese.
Okay, can we then put together a committee? Can you run it? Can you head this? No, you can't, can you head it?
Sorry, I can help, I can't. Help. Yeah, I'll do whatever.
Okay.
okay. So Eunice will lead the committee.
You can supply, I must know what you can do. I can probably help.
Can we pick a date?
That would be December 4th.
Let's,
Or, and the possibility of doing it.
I think we should keep it the first Sunday.
Yeah,
Remember,
Yeah, because that last Sunday, in November is right after.
that's after Thanksgiving.
so December 4th,
Right.
okay.
Oh, no, I can be on the committee, I just can't.
Thank you. See you.
And I yeah, Gloria with you as well.
I will be out of town that weekend, so this is meeting, so. I will not.
That's all I'm gonna say. I usually take off that time, but you know, I'm back by then.
All right.
I think it was the same as my workforce report, we'll keep that out, and we'll let you know, we'll send out.
And John.
Yes, let's start putting it together. What we need. I never helped organize it in the past. So I think we had-
There's a lot of stuff.
Well,
I think they took I think things were taken. I'll go back and check, but I think I'm supposed to again. I'll double check, but I think
Ellen, can you open your chat?
If I can figure out how. Oh, okay.
Because,
Oh, I see it, yeah.
consultants, all that, everything went around the table, and who was going to provide it for the gallery. It kind of brought out the.
Read my last question.
I did.
Is anything mentioned?
No.
Is she still there?
Tom Smith would like you, Suzanne, to ask you if you're aware of the language in the HCA website, which describes John Dickinson.
I read the web page a while ago, so yes, I'm familiar. I'm also familiar that staff is in the process of updating and making changes to the website. So if there's something particular, let me know.
Okay. Did you hear that, Tom?
Yeah, but it's, all you need to do is read that first line of the website, which seems, very short-sighted to me.
I think that this is a discussion which is going to take more than 5 minutes, and that's really all we.
Yes, that's true.
left. Yeah, so.
That's true, but I think we should go on the record as objecting to that language.
Okay,
So recognize.
all right.
Thank you, Tom. I mean,
So the second thing is we've decided that we can't meet for the party in the house, right?
We cannot have a social event in the house.
Right. But we can do it in where you are now, right?
Yep,
Yeah. So that's an option.
right. Do you want to be on the committee to help Eunice?
No.
Okay. All right,
Well, if Eunice needs me, I can help, okay?
all right.
okay, in the interest of time, I'd like to wrap this up. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
all.
Okay.
I just mentioned one thing. I do have some objections, but I don't joke earlier, so.
I know I have, would you like to look? I think Amy is new and Amy
I
is.
still have a green card.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I'm going to stop the recording of the Zoom meeting now.
I can I